Thank you so much, Howard, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. And I appreciate the opportunity to not only speak with you and the HCI team, but the global members of HCI that are joining. Thank you for being with us today. It is my esteemed pleasure to introduce Mr. Kent Orem and Catherine Cotisbotti as our two featured presenters today. And I have the wonderful opportunity to share a little bit more about them. And then we're going to hear from each of them and regarding their own respective organizations of Idaho Central Credit Union and Children's National Hospital. And then we're going to open it up into a panel discussion. And we would love to take your questions live. So please do put those in the chat. We're very excited to have a wonderful dialogue today. First off, I'd like to introduce Kent Orem. Kent is the CEO of Idaho Central Credit Union, and he believes that the key to a successful organization is employee engagement. He's cultivated an engaged culture throughout his 35-year career with Idaho Central Credit Union. Kent helped grow ICCU from 25 employees to over 1,200 employees today, and its portfolio size from $600 million to $5 billion today. Kent was also honored recently as the Credit Union Executive Society's Outstanding CEO in 2013, and he was inducted into their Hall of Fame in 2014. And in preparation for this webinar, I asked Kent and Catherine what their favorite holiday treat was. And Kent said he never met a Toll House cookie that he wouldn't eat. And so very excited to be able to introduce Kent to everyone today. As well, I'd like to introduce Catherine Cotisbotti. Catherine Cotisbotti is the Executive Vice President and Chief People Officer at Children's National Hospital. She joined Children's National in 2019 and helps focus on the growth and support of their workforce. Catherine has a broad range of healthcare experiences and has served in leadership roles in nursing operations, financial planning, business operations, and human resources. And just recently, June of 2021, a couple of months ago, Catherine was named to the Washington Business Journal's 40 Under 40 list. She lives in Washington, D.C. with her husband and 3 kids. And talking about Catherine's favorite holiday dessert as we approach holiday time, her grandma's Pitzel's breakfast cookie. And I can't wait to get the recipe and learn more about what those are later. Both Toll House, I'm just getting hungry talking about all these cookies. So thank you again. Talent Plus is very excited to welcome everyone to today's webcast, and more importantly, begin and continue talking about the importance of talent. When the right talent is aligned with the right job, magic happens. People perform better, they're happier at work and at home. Company culture is more diverse and positive. Customers are happier and businesses thrive. And there's a lot of talk in the industry right now around the Great Resignation. Maybe you've heard also the Great Reset, the Great Reshuffle, the Great Reassessment. There's a lot of different terminology out there right now as we think about the war for talent, but most importantly, keeping people at the center of an organization's strategy. And more importantly, their strategy for success. People are the heart of every organization. We want to take care of our heart, because that's what pumps the blood into the rest of the body. And so today we want to talk about not the Great Resignation or one of the other R words. We want to talk about the Great Realization and how leading companies are focusing on their talent today, the talent that is staying, the talent that they're investing in for future success. And at Talent Plus, we talk about how to build and help companies create talent-based organizations. You do that through recognizing, engaging, accelerating, and leading talent. So we're very excited today to be able to learn from 2 best companies, leading companies on their talent practices around how they're leveraging natural talents for the greatest individual and organizational impact. And as I mentioned these words, but I want to call them out again. Talent Plus's approach with our clients and how we build talent-based organizations is through that recognition, engagement, acceleration, and leading of talent, thinking about how do we set future leaders up for success and succession plan and progression plan for an organization's growth goals. So at this time, I am pleased to be able to introduce Catherine Cotisbotti again and have her share more of the Children's National story with us.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to participate in the panel and speak on this topic. It's very much top of mind and very important to me as a Chief People Officer. So I am the Chief People Officer at Children's National Hospital. We are a top 10 children's hospital, and most recently was ranked number 11 by Newsweek for top children's hospitals in the world. So as you can appreciate, we have a pretty amazing team of individuals, about 8,500 strong, and we provide care to over 230,000 unique patients on any given year. Next slide, please. So to speak more about our team and our employees and our journey with Talent Plus, we formally launched the program with Talent Plus in 2019. And what we did is we started with actually new hire assessments in 4 areas: nursing, pharmacy, our outpatient area, and patient services, which is comprised of environmental services, social work, security. And we chose those 4 areas because of their high volume, not only in hiring and turnover, but we also had 4 amazing leaders who were really excited to partner with us in human resources on the work around embracing talent-based hiring. And so through the pilot, we saw some really interesting trends about behaviors that stood out and were linked to positive performance and also decreased turnover. So with that information, we then rolled out Talent Plus to all of our additional areas. And so we now have it across the board for all individuals that are managers and all of our employees. About a year and a half into our journey with Talent Plus, we then wanted to apply those behaviors that we learned about through the performance and new hire assessments about what works for us as an organization into our core values. So our core values are listed here: compassion, commitment, and connection. And what we continue to hear from our employees is that we understand what that means at a high level, but what does that mean when we show up every day and do the work that we do? What do we need to be doing from a tangible perspective? And so we partnered again with Talent Plus to look at our assessment, hiring, performance data to determine specifically what behaviors stood out as markers for successful employees and how we can translate those behaviors into statements that would sit up under our core values. And so we're actually going to be rolling that out here in spring of 2022. So we're really excited about that. And then lastly, I just want to speak to some of the leadership development that we've also been working on and partnering on with Talent Plus. This is a picture here of our first diversity, our first Rising Leaders, cohort, a part of our diversity, equity, and inclusion leadership development program, where participants receive coaching, mentoring, and the opportunity to lead a large, impactful project for the organization. And as everyone knows here, it's really important to invest in our current and our potential people and leaders. It just sets the tone for the organization. And so what we've been doing over the last year with Talent Plus is actually conducting a leadership assessment and development initiative for the entirety of our leadership or executive council group, which is about 50 people in total. And so they've gone through behavioral interview processes, 360 review processes. What we're doing is we're putting all this information together to create a dashboard to better understand how we as leaders complement each other and where we may have opportunities to promote and grow other new senior leaders into this dynamic leadership team.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for sharing more about Children's National Hospital. And we're excited to continue learning more from you as we go into the panel dialogue and discussion. Next, I would like to pass the virtual microphone over to Kent Orem, again, CEO of Idaho Central Credit Union.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me today, and I appreciate the opportunity. I enjoy sessions like this more for what I learn than what I share, so I'm excited to hear some new things today. I've been with Idaho Central Credit Union since 1984. We're obviously a financial institution. I've been the CEO since 2007, and it's been quite a fun journey. fairly challenging in the last 2 years, I have to admit. Well, maybe we'll talk about some of that. Our journey began with Talent Plus in 2006 and 7 when we decided we wanted to become a much better service provider, have some world-class service experiences with the folks who do business with us. And we knew that what we were doing was not taking us there. So we did some research and ran across Talent Plus and partnered with Talent Plus in 2007. We work with Talent Plus in many of the same areas that Catherine mentioned. 100% selection from day one with Talent Plus, various profiles, assessments that we use to do that. We've been a partner with Talent Plus to validate some of the assessments to make sure that they actually do lead to better performance and better service. And that's been a fun thing to do. We use internal service surveys where we ask folks how are they being treated on the front line or the back office, and then act on the results we get from that. And I think that our program has been deployed out as a Talent Plus standard now. We use their culture review program where we just finished this about a month ago, where we take a dive into our culture to see how do we measure. And then we have some really meaningful things that we do with our supervisors to make sure that we're trying to drive that as best we can. And then right now I'm on a road show with all of our team virtually to try to make sure everyone understands that culture really belongs to everyone, not just managers and supervisors. And so we're working on that. We use coordinated systems and language throughout our credit union. When we talk about talent, we make sure we're using the right technology, not technology, like verbiage. When we speak about talent profiles, we want everybody to be speaking the common language. So there's the profiles, and the meanings of the profiles that we use are easily accessible. We share what everyone's top 3 talents are freely and openly, and even have some systems in place where a person could try to look for people who are like them as far as those talent profiles go, and then maybe have a chat offline with that person. We hire between 5 to 10% of the people who apply for a position with us. We have 1,600 employees today, and like probably most of you, about 10% open. So about 150 open positions. Really hard to hire right now, but we have not compromised on our assessments or the kinds of folks that we're looking for. It's just harder. So that's okay though. I'd rather be harder and preserve the culture. Our turnover is good. It's not perfect, but we're good. Much better the longer someone's with us. So that's good. Our core values of accountability and improvement suggest, and we ask people to study their craft, that if you want to be a professional in the workplace, that requires more than just coming to work every day, that there's some expectation that you'll study and self-improve, become a better speaker, better writer, use better grammar, all the kinds of traditional things that folks look for in a workforce and a workplace. And we try to help people understand that can't all happen during a work hour, or work day, that there is some personal commitment involved to becoming a professional in today's world. I think that's a good introduction for what we do, and I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Kent. Well, and I want to build off something, Kent, you just mentioned live, and Catherine, we also discussed this when we were preparing for our time together today. And that is the tough talent hiring selection processes that are facing every business today. I don't think there's an industry that I've heard that's immune to the war on talent at this given time. And so thinking about how you are recognizing the talent that you already have internally, in addition to finding more external outside talent, but how are you really leveraging the natural talents of those people inside of both of your organizations today during this challenging hiring time?
Well, I'll start. I think that, using your REAL, I'll start with the first R. And one of the most important things to recognize is that people do have natural talent, and that with that natural talent, they come with some very valuable traits and characteristics and behaviors. And it's important that we listen to them. And especially, I would say, it's always been important, but to me, it feels more important in the last 12 to 18 months. Folks have an opinion. there are some concerns, and man, it's just really important that we listen to them and embrace them for the wholeness of who they are. The more we do that, the more they feel connected and the more they feel respected. And that's what we've been working on really hard during 2021 is let's just go the extra mile to make sure our folks feel like they have a voice.
Yeah, so we have done some of those same things that Ken referenced, just general recognition, especially over the last 2 years, I think is really, really important, and is something that is simple. It's, it's not a huge financial burden, right? But it really goes a long way. But specific to leveraging natural talent, one of the things that we found was really interesting in partnering with Talent Plus is that individuals who score high in kind of the relationship, patient centricity, and work intensity do really well at our organization. And so we've really focused on how do we continue to impress upon the whole empathy component around building relationships and meeting people where they are, especially in healthcare, as everyone can appreciate. It's been extremely stressful for our frontline providers. And so leveraging that relationship empathy component that we have and people tend to gravitate to and why they have careers in healthcare is something that we've really honed in on and really leveraged, I guess is the best way to put it, during this period of time. The other thing that we've done and we've heard for many years at Children's is that, folks aren't always clear, what's my next pathway? Where can I go? And with the Great Resignation, as everybody is feeling it, we've had some unique opportunities to place people and talent into different roles and give them that opportunity that maybe wouldn't have been available to them previously. And so that's another way in which we've recognized and engaged our top talent in a different way, showing that we're committed to them. We want to continue to grow them. And it may not have been something that would have been available to them had it not been for all of the turnover and things that are going on just because of the pandemic and the market itself.
I love that, Catherine, because also with those new opportunities that you've been able to create for some of those employees, it's also showing not only the investment in them, but that how Children's National Hospital cares and that we trust them, that they can do this role. We believe that they have the talents necessary for success, and we want to provide this opportunity for them to grow and continue helping the organization. So I appreciate and love that example. And Kent as well, the listening is so key in today's world where there's a lot of noise out there, is how as leaders are we truly listening and caring? And that's something else that is getting a lot of talk about too, especially with the Great Resignation and hybrid workforces, especially, is how have both of you shown care and listening and investing in your own employees as you've navigated some who are physically have to be on site every day in order to perform their roles, and some who have moved into a remote work or a blend of that? What kind of learnings and realizations have you had as leaders?
I'm happy to go first. So I would say the first thing that has been really important and I think crucial during the pandemic is just engaging with our team and our employees on a very regular basis. And so we picked up our frequency as far as town halls, different forums in which we were actively engaging. There are some nice adds to having things like Zoom and Microsoft Teams where you can connect, albeit, in different places with each other and ask questions live and things like that you couldn't necessarily do, as always, considering at least for us in the DC and Maryland, Virginia region, how spread out we are. It allowed for a very different way to engage with our employees and hear their concerns, understand where they are, so that we could, as a leadership team, be more proactive in trying to respond to those concerns. We've also used just some other tools, like there's this really interesting, it's called Waggle. It's a crowdsourcing tool where you can put out a poll there and hear back from your employees exactly what's going on for any particular item. And then other things too, just as, again, as part of this dialogue, we learned that, resilience and wellness is really important. It's always been important in healthcare, always, but it's at a very different level now. And so hearing the feedback that our employee assistance program wasn't working and we needed to figure something out and do something better and do something different. And so we went through an RFP and we're moving forward with a new vendor. So, it's really the engagement around communicating, but it's that two-way communication.
I think that, tag right along with that. One of the things that I heard some other companies do was like slow down or stop or be afraid or, pull back. And those feel like the wrong thing to do when your workforce is unsettled. If you would have asked me in February of 2019, is work from home a strategy at Idaho Central Credit Union, that would have been a joke. We had a handful here and there in some very particular positions, but nothing's of consequence. And so we went from 1,600 people in our office to 800 at home, and we did that in 3 weeks. And it's a very, very different environment to do that and to try to stay connected to them. Just like everybody, I'm sure that's listening has been through the same kind of journey. And then now we're all back and we're trying to figure out, okay, what do we do going forward? What is work from home something that we're going to do longer term? We're a financial institution, so at least half of our positions are frontline facing people, just like at a hospital where that's not, you're not going to work from home in that environment. So we're trying to figure this out. It's a journey. It's been an interesting journey. One of the things that we did last year, when our folks were feeling very unsettled with lockdowns and changes in daycare and schools closing and all those, we're a workforce that has a lot of single parents. And so we paid everybody spaced out throughout the year. We paid everybody $1,000, what we call Corona bonus. So $1,000 times however many people we had, we did that 4 times just to take some of those, as much as we could, a little bit of uncertainty off the table for these folks. And that was greatly appreciated. So I think that sometimes money talks. And in that case, certainly a lot of folks were very appreciative of that. And then, just reinforce how important it is to continue to force your way to good communication as best you can, no matter what the environment is. And so I'm appreciative of tools like this. I had 4 staff meetings already today using Zoom, 2 later this afternoon after this using Zoom. Never could I have pulled that off in a in-person environment. And so I'm very appreciative of the tools that we have. There are some limitations and drawbacks, but one of them is not frequency. We can certainly connect a lot more frequently than we could in the past.
I appreciate this dialogue because as leaders, there's a lot of uncertainty for us. We're trying to make the best decisions on behalf of every employee, every colleague, every team member at each of our organizations, and doing what's right by the overall enterprise as well. And recognizing not only how much uncertainty there is for leaders, but more importantly, how much uncertainty there is for those employees and the different professional, personal dynamics that everyone's trying to balance in this very uncertain global world. And I like the analogy, Kent, that you were talking about with don't take your foot off the gas. Even though you're encountering some resistance, we can't take our foot off the gas when we think about how we're continuing to help and focus on the people who are showing up every day and how they're driving our businesses forward. So thinking about the employees that are currently on each of your teams today, and people are at very different points in their life cycle, their employee life cycle, if you will. They might be early on in their career, fresh out of school. They might be in a second or third career change. They might be towards a second act or retirement. How are you investing and really engaging with employees who are at different parts in their employment journey?
Well, I'll start with that. And I'm a kind of a down to the earth guy. And so we engage with people not only at their life cycle as an employee, but as their life cycle as a person, as a parent, as a spouse or a partner. So we recognize people when they have children who graduate from high school or when there's births. Our color is green. And so we send out a nice green onesie to every new child. and of course we have to send them also a savings account at our institution to get them started right. So, we recognize all those weddings, college graduations, high school graduations, preschool graduations, and we do it all. And I think our employees really enjoy that part, that we're engaged, not only just with their work life, but with their personal life as much as they'll let us in. And then at the work life level, we promote from within probably 9 out of 10 times. And so we try to help make sure people feel like they have a progression, a place to go. Using the Talent Plus system, though, we know that there are some people who are better where they are. And so we have those difficult conversations too, that hopefully at the end of those difficult conversations, we've actually ended up with a really good result. And, we have so many examples of people who we've been able to redirect into a career that fits their talents better than maybe what they thought was their outlook before that. So that's kind of what we do, is make sure that we're engaging the whole self as much as we can. We very active in our communities, and we encourage our people to come out and be active with us. And it's not uncommon for us, for instance, just an example, we'll have a parade, like we're going to have some Christmas light parades and those kinds of things. Not uncommon at all for us to have 100 or 150 people show up and walk in the parade with us. And, and we have all sorts of rewards and treats for them to come. So I like to be involved in the whole person as much as they'll let us.
You just did a Halloween drive up, I think, Kent, you were sharing last week for the kids to come and celebrate. That's so fun.
We did a drive-through because we didn't want to be unsafe. And so the drive-through, we had about 10 stations decorated. And even though it was mid-afternoon, we still made a couple of young kids cry, which is probably not appropriate, but we scared them a little bit and gave away about 1,000 bags of candy to youngsters that are involved in some way with us.
Thank you for sharing, Kent. Catherine.
So I love that you focus on the whole person. It's something I'm very passionate about myself as well, Kent. And so to that point, one of the things that we did in the middle of the pandemic, it was something we had been gearing up to do, but when the pandemic happened, right, I think all of us were taking a step back and reevaluating. Do you keep moving forward with some stuff? Do you put it on pause? Where are we? And so we decided to, so 80% of our workforce is female. 65% of it is under the age of 45. So we have a significant number of our employees who have families or are looking to have families. And so two of the significant changes is we significantly added to our fertility benefit, but we also added 12 weeks of paid parental leave. And as you can appreciate, we moved forward even during a pandemic, knowing we're likely going to need these folks at the bedside caring for our patients. But to your point, Kent, right, it's all about the whole person, and we have to be able to wrap around and support them. And so that's one way in which we really invest in our people. Is it's a lot of the other things, right, that help you as be your best self when you come to work. Mm-hmm. We of course do some of the other more kind of tried and true, right? We have a awesome Leader Academy curriculum that is available to anybody and everybody, because we believe everybody at our organization is a leader in their own right, in their own role. And so that's available to everyone. And we did move pretty quickly with our mighty little team of 3 so that it could be also virtual. So it's now fully accessible. It's not just, the in-person classes. We've also done a tremendous amount around succession planning and leadership development. And so really spending time to understand individuals' strengths, how can we continue to develop and promote that? And then to and including, we've sent over 100 people to different diversity, equity, and inclusion cohorts to get some of that just exposure and additional leadership training. So those are some ways that in a fairly big way, we've really continued to invest in our team during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. And I can only imagine, Catherine, how those individuals who are being able to participate in that senior high potential senior leader program, or being able to partake in any of that online learning that you've put together, how that helps them grow, how that helps them think about, how do I show up and do more and do better every day. I appreciate that investment in people.
Thank you.
So I want to talk a little bit more and move into as thinking about realizations that both of you have had as wonderful, fabulous, tremendous senior leaders at both of your organizations. And as you've navigated the past, we'll round up to 2 years, 18 months or so of this incredibly unknown journey, what realizations have both of you had as leaders that have been catalysts for different decisions you maybe have said yes or no to, or was an important moment in your own learning leadership journey?
So I would say for me, I've very much always believed, in the whole person approach, but I would say that the vulnerability component as a leader that I leaned into over the past 2 years is more significant than I would say that I have in the past. And I think that being able to be vulnerable and just show that side of you and in some instances, right, kind of commiserate. Yeah, I'm trying to have these 10 Zoom meetings and my 2 kids are behind me while we're virtual learning and they're screaming and running, right? And we can all relate and connect on that and just how difficult it is, and then get back to the work. And I think that has made us stronger as an organization, as a team, as a community, because we've all just kind of embraced that. But I know for me as a leader, being able to lean into that, it's just created some really invaluable connections that I think would not have happened had it not been for, just putting yourself out there, so to speak.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And, I've been working here for a long time, but I've never been through a pandemic. And, and so sometimes people expect you to have answers to questions that you just really don't have. And, today is a perfect example of that. 100+ employee rule released this morning. Lots of emails to me this morning about what are we going to do at Idaho Central Credit Union? And the answer is, I don't know. We have to figure this out. And that's feels like a daily event, maybe even sometimes an hourly event, especially early last year in April, May of 2020. I said on a Tuesday afternoon in March of 2020, we will not close any of our branch offices for business, our 40 branches across the state. We will not close them over my dead body. That's the actual quote. And on Thursday, we closed them. And here I am still alive. So apparently I'm able to also adjust on the fly. There have been so many challenges where what Catherine said, you have to admit, I don't know. Let's figure this out together. And, and not only that, but that helps you understand how bright of a workforce you really have and how much you can rely on their opinions and their feelings. And the more you ask for that, the more they share. And, sometimes you get opinions you may not want, but that's part of the deal. That's part of the process. And at the end of the day, I'm called on to be the CEO. So sometimes I have to make decisions that might even be unpopular, but at least I've listened and at least they know I've listened. And I think that's, if someone were to say, what's the difference between Ken of 2021 and Ken of 2018, it would be that I'm listening at a more deep level. I've always been a good listener, but now it's deeper. It's better than it was.
Hopefully you've had a few more Toll House cookies since 2018 to 2021 now too.
Yeah. I'm not going to miss those.
One, I want to come back to what both of you were just describing, but I want to make a comment to Catherine that you talked about, and Kent too, but this level of acceptance, at least for me, I felt it as a leader, and we're sitting at home and we're looking in at Zoom calls and we're seeing into people's lives before. You're talking about the whole person. I'm actually at work today, but I've never seen into someone's kitchen or living room. And so it gives you another level of understanding and acceptance, because we get to see this whole nother side and be a part of the kids popping in, or the dog barking in the background, or the cat walking across in front of the camera. I love those moments because it establishes another level of relatedness that didn't exist when we were all just in very, maybe more traditional professional settings prior. But I want to go back and learn a little bit more from both of you, talking about, we don't always have the answers as leaders. How do you help, and how have you helped your teams really adapt and be agile with the changes that maybe occur daily or hourly in some cases? How are you helping those on your team and at your organizations be more okay with change, understanding the world of uncertainty we live in?
Well, I think that for me and for the team that I lead, it's to understand very clearly that we don't know the answers. I think that's the first thing is, we're clueless at sometimes. And once you embrace that horror, then you do what you do when you want to know something that you don't know, is you go study and you do it as fast as you can, and you try to figure out and ask for opinions from people you trust, from every aspect of your spectrum that you trust. And in today's world, and not just with the pandemic, but I think in today's world going forward, we have to be very, very good at doing this. Is not only do we not know something, but we have to know it, and we have to know it very quickly. So how can we get there? And and be a good delegator and say, I don't need to know everything either. You can know that part, and I'll know this part, and we'll work together. I think we've become much better as a team doing that. Certainly not anywhere near perfect, but much more adept than we were in the past, because we just know there's that kind of time crunch and that pressure. We better get after it.
Mm-hmm. Is that one of the Halloween costumes, Kent, that the chain, like a big word change, and that scared some of the kids in the drive-up line last week?
Well, that would have scared the adults.
Yeah, so very, very similar to what Kent said is I think we got very good, just very quickly saying this literally could change, and we could be coming back in front of you in 2 hours from now. Mm-hmm. Information is changing so quickly. So we are telling you up front, we're making this decision based on the information we have in our hands at this point in time, but we could be back very quickly. But we're including the experts. We want to hear from you. So all the same things Kent was reiterating, right? Listening, getting feedback, trying to get input from all the appropriate stakeholders, and just knowing that we may be pivoting, but we're going to be in front of you talking to you as soon as we are pivoting so that you're aware.
Yeah. And I'm on the board of a local hospital, and I honestly can't even imagine Catherine's world. I go to those board meetings and I see what our folks are going through. It's just staggering. We owe such a debt of gratitude.
Thank you.
We do. All of our first responders, our healthcare providers, those who are in our own communities, from fire and police assistance and keeping us safe, and then everyone who's a part of helping our world work every day, from airlines and flight attendants to restaurants, and ensuring that we can all get what we need and do the things we want to do. So it is entering the month of November right now. It's a time for us not only to be grateful for what's immediately around us, but extend gratitude and thanks to everyone who has served in our communities and helped keep us all safe during this last 2-year journey. Mm-hmm. What one piece or two pieces, I won't limit it to one even, but what is some advice that you would offer to individuals who are thinking about focusing on people and how to continue leading from their own chair in their own organizations through the great resignation, and what realizations and advice can you give them as leaders?
So I think it's very similar to what we've been saying. It's recognizing, right? It's sitting down and recognizing that, they are a human with a variety of, different just components that makes them who they are, and understanding what those drivers are, who they are as a person, and making that connection. And then of course, focusing on the work. But I think if you have that even personal connection and understand where they're coming from, right, it can just make that relationship and the work that comes from it just takes it to a whole nother level, right? Because there's just this trust, right, that's been built. And so, you know, a lot of the same things we've been talking about, appreciating and acknowledging, right, that individuals have things going on outside of the workplace that are really important too. It's listening to them, and understanding and meeting them where they are. It's investing in them. And so, you know, hearing from them, what are their aspirations? What do they want to do? What kind of projects are they get them excited? And it's investing in them as the whole person.
Mm-hmm. And when you invest in someone and you have those conversations, Catherine, you then as a leader take action afterwards. So that individual that you listen to knows they've been heard. And even if they want to do something that maybe isn't the right fit for them down the road, but you follow up with them and you keep that dialogue stream going. But that's a really important component for us as leaders, is to ensure then we listen and then we make sure we follow up and take the appropriate action and next steps. Kent, what are you thinking? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. You said something at the beginning when talking about your company that when talent is appropriately aligned, magic can happen. And I'm a witness to that in our company, where when someone is in the right seat, in the right place, doing what they love or what they're really, really good at, it is magical. And all of a sudden, it doesn't feel like work anymore. You're just having a really good time doing something you love. And so my advice to people is, it sounds brutal, but it's not intended to be. It's, if you're not in a position like that, if you don't feel that way about your workday, you need to do something different. And let's figure out a better place for you to be, even if that's outside of our company. But I don't want anybody to come to work today and or have a career where at the end of it they feel, you know, downtrodden. That's not what this is about. We're with each other for 40 or 50 or 60 hours a week. We might as well like each other and enjoy what we do. This is a big part of our human experience too. And so that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I would give to somebody, is if you're in a situation, and especially if you're a leader over people and you don't like people, you should probably do something different.
Well, it's again back to the whole person. Your natural talents don't just shut off when you leave work at 5 o'clock. If you're a really hard worker, you like to do lots of different things, you like to stay really busy, you don't go home and probably just sit on the couch. Then you're finding projects at home to stay really busy with and have fun and try and learn new things. And so it's really important, to your point, Ken, that not only when we think about that whole person, you can't be unbalanced. If we're going to feel good about what we're doing and how we're doing things as a human being and myself, I've got to feel good in the different aspects of my life, personally and professionally. And said 50, 60 hours a week, sometimes we're working together. I read a stat a long time ago that said we work about 11,000 days in our life. That's a lot of days. And to be in a role that you don't feel like you're feeling significant in, and you don't feel like you're being invested in and engaged in, and someone's thinking about your talent and listening to you, is really difficult. And so I appreciate that advice very much so. Well, Catherine and Kent, any other thoughts from you? Otherwise, I'd like to pass it to Howard and include him in the discussion so we can get some live audience questions as well. I'm
good.
All right. Howard.
Yes, Mackenzie, thank you. And thank you, Kent and Catherine. Your genuineness truly shines in how much you care about the people who work for you, with you in your organizations. So let me ask you a few questions that we've been getting in here. The first one to either Catherine or Kent is, what key talent attributes do you look for when selecting someone for your team? And maybe I'm going to add on to that question myself. And how might that have changed over the last year or so?
I'll go first, Catherine. And then, we have 2 barriers to entry at our credit union, and using the Talent Plus vernacular, positivity and values. And we, in the Talent Plus assessments, you receive a score based on the different characteristics that we're looking for. And we won't hire anybody with low positivity or low values. no matter what the rest of the profile looks like. And that hasn't changed, and that won't change. Nothing in the selection process that we go through at our credit union has changed in the past 24 months. We are very dedicated to the fact that over the past 10 years, we've become a best place to work in our state, and the profitability of our credit union is the best it's ever been. We're a national leader. Those two go hand in hand, and I would never take the risk of compromising on any of that.
So for us, it's, I referenced it earlier, relationship is really a key component, which makes sense, right? Working in pediatric healthcare and mission, patient centricity or mission. But the one that resonates now more than ever is the work intensity. I would say that not only was that an attribute that our employees that were selected on having high work intensity, not only were they successful, but I would argue that like ratcheting that up is you would be very successful working in healthcare, period, right now. So that's one. The other thing that actually I went back and forth with our team on when we were creating our new behavioral statements that would sit up under our core values is resilience. And, you know, you could argue maybe that fits under work intensity too, but I think that's critical. It's a critical attribute, arguably for any place that you work, because we are moving so quickly. And so the ability to just continue to, you know, whether it's adapt, bounce back. And so in my mind, you know, bounce back and resilience are kind of hand in hand. I think those are really important attributes, at least for our organization.
That's great. I so agree with what you're both saying. Everyone's got their aces and spaces. How do you intentionally balance your team when thinking about talent, when trying to build and get the talent that you need, not just for now, but for down the road?
We share freely the profiles of the folks who are in a work group and encourage the supervisors, managers, vice presidents, whoever it might be, to make sure that they're aligned with what they do best. That, you know, if you're looking for ideas, you might want to go to an idea person. If you're looking for performance and production, you might want to go to a work intensity. You know, so what are you looking for? What are you trying to solve here? And but the key to that is to back up to how I started, which for us is we're very open with sharing our talents and how we see each other. We don't always agree with that, which you might imagine. But the more open we are with that, the better our work groups perform. And so when you mentioned aces and spaces, you know, people just know, they know who they are, and they know that what they bring to the table, generally speaking, and we just try to maximize that.
So we do something similar too. We're very open with sharing, you know, your individual profile, so that in particular your leaders can best assess how to, you know, whether it's assign the work or involve, you know, particular team members in projects. But it also allows the team to better understand and relate right with each other. But the other thing too, I would say, is just making sure that we're having that constant dialogue around performance, just generally. So it's not that once a year phenomena. It's truly real-time feedback. And so, you know, if you're the top talent, you know, we're having those conversations. How can we grow you? If there are concerns, or if you're just well placed, we have those conversations. To Kent's earlier point, it can be a tough conversation, but it's a conversation that's beneficial to both parties, because it's an open dialogue. So just constantly having that real-time feedback, real-time conversation around, you know, performance and where an individual is.
That's great. Thank you, Catherine and Kent. I just have to quickly say, before I go to the next question from one of our listeners today, is that I teach the Leadership Development Succession Strategies course for HCI. And I'd love to just take this webinar and play this whole webinar for the class, because you both epitomize what we look for in having organizations and leaders who feel the development of their people and their leaders is so critical. Brandon asks, I work with people who are in essence their own bosses. How would you go about still showing them that we want to invest in them and that they are significant?
I don't know. I don't know. Can I say I don't know? I don't work with
Yeah.
I don't work with anybody who as that was defined. But in other ways, everybody's their own boss to some degree. And so I'm thinking, I'm in Catherine's world in her head right now, thinking, okay, let me think about a doctor right now. How would I have these kinds of conversations with some of my doctor friends that I know, or engineers or surveyors or all, those folks who are self-employed. I think nobody is an island. Everybody has to connect at some level with somebody. And, so these skills they're transferable across everyone, I think. And so what I would do is try to help somebody understand that just because you're on an island by yourself you aren't. There are other people that are connected to you and that you need to be able to interact with. And here's how maybe I could help you do it a little better.
I completely agree. And I would say, the other thing too is to understand, again, going back to, their own motivators and drivers, understanding that. But back to Kent's point, they are not on an island. They are connecting with other people in some way, some fashion. And so they need to be, thinking about that and cognizant of that. And there are ways in which then they could, potentially think through, investment opportunities or interactions or ways to go about that.
Frankly, even asking another way to kind of phrase the same question Kent was saying is asking that individual, how can I support you? Even though you don't have a direct reporting relationship to them, or they don't, they're self-managed or leading, but how can you support them in the role that you're in or the team that they might be a part of? That's a question a lot of people don't get asked very often, is what can I do to support you today or to get this project completed? And you might be surprised by what you learn and what they do or don't need help with and support with.
Great answers. Great responses. Let me ask a little more tactical, if you will, because you both have the right philosophy and ideas. Ken can certainly see why you've won the credit union awards, and Catherine, part of your work has to have led to Children's National being ranked so highly. But we also know that today people are busier and more stressed than ever. What are you doing differently in terms of training and learning for them when they don't have perhaps the time that we might have found a couple years ago? How are you making that happen?
Our learning and development team has done some really cool things with our Leader Academy. And specifically, I found some really cool, 15-minute TED Talks just around it, whether it's leadership, connection, so different, leadership categories, so to speak. And they have, they've been able to pair it with just things to think about. So, if it's about, your leadership definition or your why, right? And then there's an exercise to go through, but you can do it literally anytime, right? So if you wake up at 1 a.m. and you're like, oh, I'm going to listen to that TED Talk, you could do it. It's accessible to you. So the team has gotten really creative at trying to create different platforms or avenues to engage folks and just have things accessible to them when they have the time.
We, I don't know, it feels like maybe we went back to the future on this one a little bit, but in our entry-level positions, we were not delivering a very good, very well-trained product out to our branches. And so I've heard and studied about basically operating with a little bit of slack in the organization where there's a little bit of spare time, I guess, for lack of a better word. And so we redesigned our entry-level training program so that we take folks and we train them religiously and studiously. And then when we deliver them out to our branches in a position, they're ready to go. There's no on-the-job training. And our frontline folks have reacted so well to that they know they're patient because they know when they get our trained product that it's very reliable and ready to go. And that's so much different than we were 5 years ago. there's a cost to doing that. It feels like up front when you first start it, but it turns out there's not really. It's a much more beneficial way to train folks at our institution.
Sounds great. Thank you. Mackenzie, before I wrap things up, any last words from you?
As I've been listening and learning from both Catherine and Kent, I certainly first want to extend my most sincere thank you to both of them for being a part of today's webcast. And I've taken so many notes, but when I think about distilling this down, and as leaders, what we can do is we're listening, we're caring, we're honoring the whole person. We're also showing vulnerability as leaders, and it's okay to say, I don't know, or I'm going to go find that out. The question we were talking about with ACEs and spaces is, I believe great leaders surround themselves with people who have different talents than them, because I'm not great at everything, but I know if I've got people around me that can help and support and love to do some of those things that maybe aren't as strong for me, we'll make the organization better together. And so it's a two-way street, and communication and listening are critical moments today as leaders that we really need to continue leaning into and not taking our foot off the gas.
Oh, that's great, Mackenzie. Thank you. I've got to say that, and I'll make a reference, can't believe I'm tying Halloween to this, but in the past, I think leaders were thought to be the ones that needed to wear the capes and have those superpowers. And I think both of you have demonstrated that we are passing those capes on to the people who work for us, for the leaders in our organization, to make a difference and be the ones who are really stepping up. And it's only happening because of both of you. And Mackenzie, through your efforts with them as well. So I want to just thank all of you, three of you, for the wonderful presentations today. And just as a reminder to HCI's members that today's webcast has been approved for HRCI and SHRM credit, as well as for HCI recertification. Your credits for attending this webcast will soon show up in your My HCI profile under the transcript tab. While you're there, don't forget to check out hci.org for even more insights, as well as information on our other certifications, virtual conferences, premium memberships, and more. And thank you again to our presenters. Kent and Catherine, you did a marvelous job today. And Mackenzie, thank you and for sponsoring this with Talent Plus, and for your efforts at having just a wonderful panel discussion. And I'd also like to finally thank you, our webcast viewer. Thanks for spending the past hour with us, and we look forward to seeing you and bringing you additional insights such as this in future webcasts. Have a great day.